All right, we are live, 12:01 on the dot. Silver Doctor is live on air. I'm happy to be back, co-hosting along with my other half over here, Mr. Paul Half Dollar. Paul, how you doing, my friend?
Doing good today, Mike. How you doing? It's been a couple weeks due to scheduling conflicts. We don't have the big budgets like the mainstream media, so we can't just show reruns, right? But it's good to talk to you again, Mike.
Very true, very true. It's good to be back behind the camera with Silver Doctor. So it looks like, so for those that have not noticed, I got my Silver Doctor shirt on. I see you got the shirt on as well. So we're trying to up our game and give people ways of being a part of the whole Silver Doctors community. So welcome to those that are watching. Let me actually make sure we're streaming well. We got a couple people watching it. As always, we got a couple topics we want to cover. And as always, if you have thoughts or subject matters you want to touch on, feel free to let us know in the chat. And we'll do our best to address those questions or thoughts you want to comment on. And so let's get started right away. And so Jerome Powell. Well, actually, what do you want to talk about metals first? Or you want to talk about Jerome Powell? Or what do you want to start this conversation off today?
Yeah, let's start with the metals first because they're way more important than Jerome Powell is, I think.
Fair enough. So we went above 1,400, and we're currently cruising above 1,400 for gold. Not much activity in silver, but yet you got some information from your interview yesterday from Mr. Harvey Oregon on what could possibly happen. So I'll let you start off with what you want to cover first.
Mm-hmm. Well, Harvey dropped a bunch of bombshells yesterday. It's funny too because people are like, "Oh, he's been saying this for years," but he is a person that's in the know, right? And I'm sure he gets fed little, trails that lead to nowhere every once in a while. But he was saying some pretty impressive stuff yesterday. And one of the things that he was saying is that, the metals markets, right? The COMEX is literally drained of gold right now. Mm-hmm. And the LBMA is pretty much half paper, half physical at this point. And that literally they're being drained as we speak. Mm-hmm. And the issue with that, which he was trying to make clear, which came clear, is that, everybody right now, I get it, right? On the technicals, gold is oversold. Mm-hmm. And everybody is saying, we're going to get this massive pullback here. But, he's saying we actually have to have physical metal in order to be able to hit the price. Mm-hmm. And he says he doesn't think they have the metal right now, so he's not thinking that the hit's coming. He thinks that we still have some upside here. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I think is interesting, right, which I said yesterday, is that, because, 2 days ago, or yesterday, gold broke to nearly 1450, right? We were above 1440 for a while. Yeah. But silver, has barely moved, right? We're still between 1525 and 1550. Yeah. And, I think that since there's no metal right now, and plus they're just feeding open interest, right? They're feeding shorts into the paper market and up in open interest. But since there's no metal right now, I think one of the things that the cartel is doing is sitting on the price of silver, right? Because we've broken through this major resistance, we've broken through this major trend line that goes back 6 years, and every single time, gold's always been hit back, and nobody wants to believe that it's the real deal. Mm-hmm. I think that they're sitting on silver so heavily because they're saying, this is what the traders say, right? Well, silver's not moving, so silver's not confirming gold's breakout. So this is a breakout, fake out, right? Mm-hmm. That's the term that they're using. Yeah. I don't think it's a breakout, fake out. I think these are the beginning movements that we've been waiting for such a long time. They talk about the summer doldrums, but it's far from doldrums this summer. There's a lot of excitement in the markets right now, Mike.
Yeah. Now, so with gold moving, do you think some of that activity, because for the longest, I happen to follow and watch a lot of technical analysts that do, traders, they're talking about, there's certain key numbers, and once we hit that number, there's no holding it back. And so for a lot of people that I've been watching, it was always like 1350 or 1375. So now we've gone past that. We're in the 14s. And so, do you think this has a lot to do with the events happening around the world and the current position of the economy? Or is there some things happening as far as the COMEX side of things and the manipulation starting to unwind a little bit? What are some of the trigger points you think is causing gold itself to do a little bit?
I think it's a combination of both of those things that you just said, right? And for the fundamental reasons, there's two main fundamental reasons that you can point to. First one is the buildup in Iran. And it's funny, too, because we were talking about that about a month ago. We said, what's going to get hot first? Is it going to be Venezuela or is it going to be Iran? And sure enough, we were talking about Iran. And look where we are. We're calling off missile strikes at the last minute, because we've got to maintain the state of readiness if we're not just going to annihilate them off the face of the earth. But that's one of the factors, right?
Yeah.
The other factor factor is the Federal Reserve, right? We're going to get into that in a little bit. But Jerome Powell, the Fed in general and the markets in general, they're expecting rate cuts, right?
Yeah.
So, we've been talking how that is going to put a turbocharger under the price. So there's two fundamental reasons that are supporting this breakout in gold right now. And yes, technical level, I can't remember if it was 1377.90 or where the exact line was for the breakout, but we've clearly broken that level.
Yeah.
There was another place that said, the manipulation coming to an end here. Yes, they're maintaining it as long as they can, and they will maintain it until they can't maintain it any longer. Yeah. This is what we see time and time again, right? This is what, we saw coming out of Bretton Woods, right, where they maintained that peg to $35 an ounce for gold, and they maintained it all the way up until they couldn't maintain it anymore, and then they had to revalue to $42 an ounce, right? Yeah. So we're at that point where they can't maintain it anymore, and, so here's what I think they're trying to do. And I think they're trying to use silver to do this, right? Because, time and time again, we come up to 1350 and we get hit right back down. So there's two things going on. The traders that don't believe in the manipulation that are looking at the charts, they're saying, well, this is just going to be another breakdown. This is going to be another fake out. Silver's not confirming it. And then there's the people like us who've been, waiting for years and years and years, and we're saying, well, it's never going to happen, right? It's never going to come to an end. They can just keep on doing this forever. But, just like that peg after Bretton Woods, couldn't hold, this can't hold either. And I think we're starting to see the breakdowns now, Mike.
Yeah. Yeah, I do agree. And what's interesting is that since, for me personally, over the last 10 years of having actually studied and been a part of this educational realm of metals, I've been very excited that the prices have been suppressed, manipulated, whatever, forever, because it's given me time to educate myself and then to begin just accumulating a few crumbs here and there, which ultimately adds up for me and my household. And so I personally am not, ready for things to really take off the way that we all believe it's going to do. So I always love to be able to buy things at a much cheaper price. And so I'm hoping that this can keep going for just a little bit longer so that I can continue to get a little bit more.
Yeah. It's interesting because, sitting in the driver's seat at Silver Doctors, I can see the interest barely just now coming back, right? The breakout was last week, and it was all last week. And I don't know if people realize that we hit new all-time highs in the S&P 500, right? We hit new all-time highs in the stock market last week, but gold stole the show last week, right? Yeah. But still, we didn't see an increase in traffic until this week. So what is that telling you? That's telling you that people, like I said, the traders, they just think it's going to be another fake out. And the ones that have been waiting for so long, they're just thinking, well, it's never going to happen, so why get excited now? Yeah. But now that it's following through to the second week, now we're getting people back saying, wait a second, what's going on with gold and silver? Yeah. I'm with you, right? I wish I could add more to my stack right now at these prices. So one of the things that I said on Monday was, when they've been hitting silver, right, especially silver, and with the gold to silver ratio now, I think it popped above 94 even, just yesterday or today. But they've been giving us this time to stack, but I lost my train of thought there. What you were saying about giving us time to stack.
Yeah, just go ahead. The more suppressed the prices are, the greater it is for those that are watching this show and those that are in the know to be able to diversify. And so I actually did a video yesterday called "Bet Against the Fed." And so, and this transitions into the Jerome Powell's speech yesterday and his last couple speeches and where he's heading. But before I do that, I want to make sure we acknowledge those that are watching us, because it looks like we got about 75 or so people tuning in, and we want to definitely not keep them out of the loop. So let's I'm gonna acknowledge a few people and see if they got any questions or thoughts. And so for those that are watching, if you're watching, definitely give the video a thumbs up. For those that want to donate, a thumbs up. But more importantly, if you're watching, let us know where you're watching from. Give us your name. We'll definitely acknowledge your presence this afternoon, because we're very appreciative of you joining us for this live stream. So I got Johnny says good morning. We got Mill Spec says hello, folks. We got Crypto Mike. It says the cryptos. We got Jess Garcia says good morning, everybody. Today is a great day watching and learning with you guys. Appreciate you. So it looks like cryptos is going to be a subject we might want to touch on, because somebody said 13K. So We have some crypto fans out there. It says, currently listening from Fort Knox military base, looking at the gold bullion reserve right now. So Kevin is actually on the military base. That's interesting.
Nice. Nice. Being in the Army, he wouldn't be saying that, right? So I don't know. Maybe he is. Get us a snapshot, a couple of those gold painted 2x4s while he's at it.
Yeah. We got John Michael from Redford, Michigan. How you doing? We got Daniel from Germany. We got Gary from upstate New York. We got Eamon Hoffman says, skip the Fed. We got Mill Speck says, watching from East Tennessee. So appreciate you guys letting us know where you're watching from, man. And what questions do you guys have? What thoughts you want to share, as well as any news articles you guys have come across. Feel free to put links there, and I'll try to touch on them. But let's, Jerome Powell and the FOMC, the Fed, the Board of Governors, that whole entity itself. So I actually watched yesterday the entire Council on Foreign Relations presentation. So it was a short spiel from Jerome Powell in front of a room full of those that are in the know, some reporters, some economists, some big money people. And so we all know the origins of the Council of Foreign Relations. It's basically a private boys and girls club for those that control and manipulate things. So he was basically talking to his own kind. And so he didn't say anything new, but I've noticed a trend between the last FOMC meeting where they gave a conclusion that they weren't going to lower rates to this last meeting. Same spiel, but he's hinting on 4 or 5 of the same key points over and over and over again, which for those that are able to read Fed talk, assuming they're economists, big banks and all, they can read through what he's saying to position themselves and to prepare for what they're about to do. But what I gather as an outsider is that this monetary experiment that we're currently living in is coming to a halt, or it's ran its course. And that's the whole debt-based monetary system where, the fiat currencies are a reflection of central bank. That's their primary product. And so one thing I took away was that between the idea of manipulating rates, they're going to try to control rates, interest rates, as their primary tool. He kept saying the word toolkit, our toolkit, our toolkit. And I'm thinking like, man, our financial livelihoods are dependent upon a monetary toolkit. Like, could you imagine, umpteen years ago, everything being boiled down to what's inside of a institution's toolkit, So, and then on top of the interest rate aspect, the conclusion of all that is that quantitative easing and stimulating type policies are here to stay. That's basically what I got from everything he said. Like, the new norm will be stimulus. Therefore, you can expect the monetary basis to increase, less purchasing power all the way around, the death of fiat currencies in general. And the question will be, how will the world look like as all this unravels? Because inflation is going to take off, and then it's just very disturbing to think about a toolkit controlling our financial lives. So that's my little rant on what I gathered yesterday.
It is, and the only tool in their kit is adrenaline, right? Like, we need just continuous shots of adrenaline, right? That'll kill you, That's what they give people when they're on their deathbed, so they can say the last things before they die,
exactly.
To their loved ones. But so it's funny too, because, well, not the death part, but the toolkit, because I watched 20 seconds, literally 20 seconds of Jerome Powell speaking yesterday. That's all I could stomach. And I heard that exact word, toolkit, right? In the only 20 seconds that I watched, I heard this exact thing. And here's what I heard him say in 20 seconds. I heard him say, well, and he used this exact words, and it's pretty much a direct quote, but the phrase he used, he said, the Fed is the lender of last resort. We'll come back to that. And then he says, so we're going to use everything within our toolkit and new tools, right? And then from there, I just was cutting it off.
Yeah.
But here's my point about that, right? Lender of last resort. Here's the thing, right? We live in a perpetual, ever-increasing, exponentially, it's going to go parabolic, debt-based fiat currency system, right? So, yes, of course they're the lender of last resort because the debt is ever expanding, and it has to, right? Under a gold and silver standard as required by the United States Constitution, there is no lender of last resort because if you don't have the gold and silver to back it up, you can't lend the money. Right. You see what I'm saying? So it's like, people are starting to catch on, right? I mean, we weren't born yesterday anymore, and, we understand what real money is, what monetary policy should be, right? Which is simply define gold and silver, define the dollar as a specific weight and measure of gold and silver, and there you go. Let it run itself, and the economy does fine all on its own, right? Then the other thing I wanted to say about the Fed meeting, or not the Fed meeting, but the speech from yesterday, but it's about the Fed in general, when they held last week, right, is, back when they were raising rates, for the whole 2 years that they raised them up to 2.5%, when they were raising rates, they would say, well, it's going to be every quarter, right? So it was March, then it was June, then it was September, then it was December, right? Yeah. Well, what's happening now that they're in crisis mode again? They're like, oh my God, we just had this meeting, but we're going to cut in rate. We're going to cut in July. Don't worry, we're going to cut in July. So now it's like, every month they're going to be cutting rates where they couldn't even go once a quarter to raise them. Yeah. And this is not what the economy needs, right? What the economy needs is to just let all the bad stuff out of the system so that we can start again fresh. That's what we need, right? Yeah. So just in and of itself, this is inherently evil. Yeah. Did you have any thoughts you wanted to add on that? I just thought it was weird how it used to be every quarter when they're raising, but now all of a sudden see how quickly the mainstream media will flip and they'll say it's every time they meet, they got to be cutting.
Yeah. Yeah. And to just piggyback on what your thoughts about the 20 seconds you heard, the snippet about, what tools, because somebody asked a question during the Q&A portion, and the question was, what monetary tools are you referring to that perhaps, other nations or other central banks are using that you haven't used here? And he basically said that, everything tool-wise that they can use, primarily what they've already utilized, in which it'd be no problem to just do that again, referring to dropping rates and and as he said, asset buying program. So that was a given to me. With that's what they're going to do. But then he didn't say anything beyond the norm of what has already been done. So there's still possibly some wiggle room for a new tool or two that we have not seen. And so that's something that would concern me, because I'm thinking we've already seen their balance sheet increase, exponentially, because they've been buying assets and all that stuff like that. But what other tools do they have in the toolkit that we haven't seen yet? And, how will it be rolled out? It's things that left me guessing. So I don't know, but I think there's a couple tools that we haven't seen yet outside the obvious, but we see the results of the past tools used, and they haven't really helped Main Street at all. And so, but I guess we might find out. Hopefully not, but we'll see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and pretty much the only thing left is negative interest rates, right? Yeah. I mean, they're already negative in real terms because we're losing out to inflation, to price inflation. But that's pretty much it, right? I mean, because that's all you can do, really. You have interest rates and you have the asset purchases, and when you've taken interest rates already to zero, this is one of the points that I hit on last week, is that the American consumer is already tapped out. So just cutting rates 50 basis points isn't going to cut it, right? I mean, because we're already at maximum debt saturation. Yeah. The other thing about that is, the yield on the 10-year note is below 2%. Mm-hmm. Well, it's tiny. It's 2.03% right now, but it's been below 2% for a couple of days. Yeah. So, we're now more than 50% below the inflation rate for the overnight Fed funds rate. Yeah. So they've got to go way more. Bullard came out yesterday, and he was talking about, 50 basis points is too much, implying that, they could do a 25 basis point cut. But either way, none of that's going to do anything of any good, right? Yeah. It's like it's a bad analogy, right? But it's if you're in your wild college years and you're at a party and you're passing out because you're having such a good time drinking, well, that you only get to that point and then it stops, right? And then the good time is over. Yeah. The good time for the monetary policy is over. There's nothing else that they can do. The party is done. Yeah. The blackout's coming, and then there's going to be this nasty hangover. Yeah. So
blackout's coming, nasty hangover, and I'm trying to pull up an article from something that I shared yesterday, and it has to do with the real estate market and how I thought that. If I can pull up, it's funny, so I'll wait till I pull it up. But let's go to some questions in the chat. Let's see if there's anything out there that people might want to talk about. It says Iran cut ties to the U.S. drone down in Saudi Arabia, war soon. And so I heard about a drone down in Saudi Arabia. Have you heard anything about that or touched it? Or let me Google that.
Well, in the Saudi Arabia one, the one that I was referring to, or the one that I was looking at was the one over the Strait of Hormuz, right? The one that Iran shot down and the one that nearly caused the missile strikes,
Yeah.
right? And I think Ron Paul said it best, right? Ron Paul was like, who's the aggressor here, right? I mean, is Iran the aggressor or is the United States the aggressor? And here was my point about that. And it was actually mistaken, right? Because my point was, if somebody was, standing on your property with a gun, threatening you, what are you going to do? Are you just going to stand there and let that happen? I mean, of course not. So what somebody said was, oh, well, it was over international water, so that doesn't count. Well, so what? If somebody's standing in the street with a gun threatening me, I'm still going to do something. You know what I mean?
Exactly. So that was that whole drone being shot down. And my question, do you think President Trump decided to call off the dogs 10 minutes before they were about to be dropped because of his desire to try to work things out or not go into war, or was the call made outside of him and he had to either say yay or nay, and he said nay and probably pissed a couple of the warmonger people off, or what? What are your thoughts on that? Why did he say no 10 minutes before they were expected to drop, supposedly?
I can't remember who said this or where I heard it from, but it makes sense to me. And I think it has to do with corruption and money because, and it's a slightly different angle, right? But all of this stuff is affecting the oil markets, right? Insurance policies have to get rewritten because, it's going to cost a lot more to insure oil tankers because remember, it's not just the one drone, right? It's also all these attacks on these oil tankers, right? So, what happened with like with 9/11 when the towers went down and these massive insurance policies were taken out beforehand, right? So, there's probably, so I go down, the rabbit hole, and I go down the path that nobody else likes to walk down. But the one that I go down leads me to the fact that, they call it off because they're waiting to see how they can make even more money off of it. So I have a more sinister and cynical outlook on it. But that's, also because, I don't think that, politics, I pretty much think that, I don't think that Trump can do it, right? I don't think that Trump can make America great again without draining the swamp, right? That is the bottom line. That's my opinion. Where I don't think he has drained the swamp. So, I think he's powerless either way. And then I think the reason that they were called off wasn't so much because of Trump, but it was because of the fact that the deep state globalists are still figuring out how they can make as much money off of this as possible. So that's what I see. What do you see about that, Mike?
I'm wondering myself because I don't, and I've just after having covered this for quite some time, I've never bought into the narrative that Trump is here to save the day. I always believe he's a Trojan horse. So I have problems reading exactly his actions and his tweets, knowing that he possibly could be compromised or he could be doing some things in the best interest of the American people. I don't know. But, from more of his jib jabber and tweets, it looks like he's in position to be a part of the Great Reset, default, whatever he's going to oversee more than likely if he gets his next term. So I have problems really reading this guy. But ultimately, I know the end of the dollar, the Federal Reserve note, and where the world is heading. So that kind of puts me in a neutral position. So my question is, in reference to this whole pressure on Iran, like, I might should pull up this article here where it talks about, if Iran does something else, they're going to be blown into oblivion. They're going to be obliterated or something like that. And I'm thinking, like, how can someone speak so cocky?
Blue joins us from Hong Kong.
Let me close this. How can someone be so cocky to just continue to tweet out things that, basically he's openly threatening another nation? Like, how can you not take that as an act of war or threat or what? So does he really want war that bad or what? That's where I'm trying to figure out, because I can't really read it, because I'm thinking like there'll be no winners in the end of this, because it's going to escalate, because Russia definitely will probably get involved if we decide to go into Iran or trying to take out Iran in a sense. So I'm kind of I'm
and I don't know if you remember during the debates, but back in 16 in the debates with Hillary, the main debates, but there was like some problems with Mosul, Iraq at the time. I don't remember exactly what was going on back then. I think it was something about ISIS was, I don't remember exactly what was going on. But one of the things that I do remember that candidate Trump said was that, well, the first thing you do is you be quiet, you don't talk about anything to your enemy, and because you do the element of surprise, right?
Yeah.
So what's the element of surprise here? That we're not going to do anything because we're telling them we're going to obliterate them? I don't know.
Yeah.
But, there's one more point I want to make about war, right? Because it's always in a state of war. And a couple weeks ago, I made the point that the Fed looks at it that war stimulates the economy for like 12 or 14 quarters, right?
Yeah.
Not months, but quarters, which is like 3-4 years. But on top of that, I don't know if people realize this, but, the United States, right, we're still paying for the Second World War. We're still paying for the Vietnam War. Why? Because, like, for example, the Vietnam War, right? All the widows, right, that lost their husbands in the Vietnam War, guess what? They're still getting that check every single month, right? So, these wars, they just add on and add on and add on and add on, and the effects are felt, decades and decades later.
Yeah.
I really hope this isn't what is in our cards, because I really do hope
Yeah, fair enough. Now, I want to touch on, it looks like if the U.S. is always pushing and imposing and threatening other nations. Now, what do you make of the Russian warship docked in Havana, Cuba? What are your thoughts on that? Like, is that like on some, okay, you want to put some weapons in our backyard, we're going to put a couple in your backyard too, or what? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, we've been... there's a whole Crimea and Ukraine thing, and then, all of these setting up missile, quick strike or what do they call it, first strike capabilities in Europe against Russia. So can you really blame them? I mean, so is it a crisis? I mean, I don't know, because, I don't think so, because as far as the two figureheads go, right, it appears that both President Trump and Putin can keep their cool about this, right? So I would assume that cool can prevail. But if you look at some people, right, who've been in Washington, like, for example, Assistant Secretary Treasurer under Reagan, Paul Craig Roberts, right? I mean, he fears total nuclear obliteration, where one day we just don't wake up.
Yeah.
I would like to think that we can keep our cool. More than that, but then again, I don't know. Because when we're talking about deep state globalists, we're talking about sociopaths and psychopaths here. So I don't know where it leads. But yeah, that's a good point. And, you see how quickly Venezuela has gone out of the news, right?
Yeah.
You don't hear anything about Venezuela anymore. And if you do, it's just like a little snippet here and a little snippet there to introduce a little news blurb to know that it's pretty much done right now, or at least it's on the back burner.
Yeah.
So I think that'll fade either way. But, sure, it's one of those things where it's causing uncertainty in the marketplace. That's for sure.
Yeah, very true. Now let me dive into. I see some activity in the chat. Let me see here. We got. There's a question about the wealth transfer that looks like it could be a very good question. Let me see if I can find it. It says, okay, from Gary White. It says, can you explain the quote transfer of wealth and the precious metals purchasing power? It says gold still buys a good suit like 100 years ago, question mark.
Mm-hmm.
So can you elaborate on the transfer of wealth in regards to precious metals?
Well, money is not destroyed, it's transferred, right? I mean, you may lose it all and then it's destroyed for you, but in essence, the energy that's produced is transferred, right? Because with gold and silver, what we're talking about is stored energy. That's what they are, right? Because it takes a lot of energy to get something out of the ground and get it into a gold coin or bar or round or something like that. Silver, for that matter, too.
Yeah.
So, the transfer of wealth comes two ways. Naturally, by moving out of certain asset classes and into others, right, of which, there's only two things that are severely undervalued right now, in my opinion, and that is the commodities, and that's gold and silver, right? So naturally speaking, moving of money, right, like out of the stock market, out of the bond market, out of the real estate market, and then into undervalued, underappreciated assets such as gold and silver, that's the transfer of wealth. That's the first way. The second way is during the reset, right? Because you either have it or you don't. That's one of the things that Harvey Urban was talking about yesterday in our interview, was that he believes that gold is very quickly going to go to $2,000, and then we're going to have, literally banking holidays where gold's going to be quickly revalued to a starting point of $10,000, and that silver is going to be valued 10 to 1 to gold. So he thinks that's coming. So that is the other way that there is this wealth transfer, because, if you have your position when the reset happens, right, and the resets happen, right? I mean, we know they happen. Look at 1933 to 1934. Look at when they took silver out of coinage. Look at 1971 and 1974, right? So the resets happen. 1945, right? Bretton Woods. So the resets happen. It's just a matter of when, and you either are there for it with your position to get the transfer, or you're not. So that's the transfer of wealth, and it's two ways, both naturally and by a reset. And you see, this is why it's exceptional right now, because we're looking at both of those mechanisms, because just naturally, right, through all these decades of suppression, the prices of gold and silver are severely depressed and undervalued. So there's the natural transfer in addition to the reset that we know is coming, because the debt is unsustainable and it's going to go exponential and parabolic. Now, when it comes to buying a good suit, first of all, I really do think that people have to not talk about it that way. And I say that because a really nice suit today does not cost $1,400. A really nice suit costs in excess of $10,000. Okay. I'm embarrassed to say this, right? But I'm going to say it anyway because the question was asked. My daughter has a $450 belt, right? And she's 14 years old. So you mean to tell me a fine suit costs $1,400? I don't think so. I don't own any fine suits, okay? But I know for a fact that a fine suit costs a minimum of $10,000. So yes, right, gold will buy a fine suit. Right now it does not, but it will get there, right? Same thing with fine togas and the whole 9 yards.
Right. So basically, the transfer of wealth is the revaluation of metals back to account for all the fiat currency that's ever been printed or digitally put into the financial system, and all the vehicles, all the financial products they've given us. If you were to take the metals and you account for all that, that would more so give you an ideal price, and definitely it's not $1,400 gold and silver. And so, that's interesting, man. And so I like to utilize just looking ahead based upon all the fiat that's in existence. I've heard so many figures as to what it might be if you add up all the global currencies in existence. It's equal trillions or whatever. And so you think about that's currently what's in existence. But I think all central bankers are about to coordinate a synchronized event of basically of currency devaluation in hopes of saving their own necks and their governments that they issue the currency to where whatever currency is in circulation now, it's about to triple, go parabolic in a sense, in a very negative way. So I don't think there'll ever be a true way of actually discovering the actual paper price of a metal. And so that's one of my concerns as we get into the next paradigm of whatever that monetary system looks like. I still will be very sketchy on redeeming or utilizing metal in terms of paper or digits, because I don't know how can we truly discover the price of a metal that's so scarce and finite in nature in comparison to what they're going to try to issue us this next go round. So,
right. And it's challenged too, because you bring up very good points, and it is a paradigm shift, and it's a shift in what does this house cost in dollars, right? We're not talking about a gold price in dollars. We're talking about what does this house cost in gold, right? So yes, what is the value going to be? Is it going to be the correct value once there's a reset? Well, that comes down to not what is the dollar price of the metal, but what can you get for that gold and silver. So those are good points there. I wanted to hit up on this one comment that I just saw fly by, and I can't remember where it is, but it said something about HPP, HMF, something there, that really long name. It says Catherine Austin Fitz says gold will get you through a checkpoint. Yes, absolutely, right? I mean, because, and that brings up another point that I wanted to make. With Bitcoin going on this rise, I saw something that said like Bitcoin's going, Bitcoin's the new gold, drop gold. Bitcoin's going good right now. But what is your gold just going to do sitting there? What's gold's use if it's just sitting there? And I replied to that and I said, what's gold's use just sitting there? Well, gold's gold sitting there, first of all, is stored energy. So you have to think, what is stored energy's use? Stored energy's use is anything that needs energy. Well, what needs energy? Absolutely everything in this entire world needs energy. Yeah. So, gold just sitting there is the ultimate for use because it is stored energy ready to be released when you need it. Yeah. And in the case of that comment about gold will get you through a checkpoint, absolutely. You want to talk about, you need some stored energy right now because your life depends on it, that gold will get you through that. Yeah. Assuming, right? Yeah. So we'll see, but that's a good point there, and like I've said, I'm a silver bug, but when push comes to shove, I'm running out of the front door with my gold, right? Yeah. I'm sure I'd have an eagle in my pocket somewhere too at that time too, but
Yeah, man. Okay, so I want to actually, so here's an article I'm gonna put up on the screen, and this is interesting because it's just how chaotic governments can be and how desperate they can be when stuff starts to hit the fan. And so here's an article from Al Jazeera that came out yesterday, and it says Zimbabwe outlaws use of the dollar and other foreign currencies. Okay. And so they just had a presidential election in Zimbabwe, and things are still very chaotic there when it comes to their financial matters because they rolled out a real-time gross settlement dollar, or RTGS, and it's called Zollar, Zollar, but it's supposed to be pegged to their dollar reserves, and of course, as always, they've exceeded the backing to where people are running from the Zollar into dollars, and so the stories like this of countries and their internal problems are about to become more mainstream news, I believe. And so, go ahead.
No, yeah, it is. And, it's funny because it'll have the absolute, just like you said, right, the opposite intended effect, right? Yeah. Because they're saying, you can't use dollar anymore. What are they going to do? Well, they're going to go use dollars, right? Because, you can tell somebody to do something, but that doesn't mean they're going to do it, right? A person's going to do what's in their best interest, right? I mean, that's just what we do as humans. So if someone tells me I got to go use this, well, maybe to pay my taxes to you, but in reality, I'm going to be, doing what's in my best interest. Right. The ultimate in humans' best interest is gold and silver, right? And that's always been the case, right? That's what we've agreed upon, thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago. But yeah, I think that's interesting, and it's right? Because it's the periphery starting, right? Zimbabwe, that's, it seems like they're always, just like Argentina, right? Argentina and Zimbabwe, they're always entering in currency crisis. Yeah. So we're right there again, right? Yeah. So be looking for the headlines out of Argentina next, because it's coming. Mm-hmm. Because the whole system is corrupt, right? That's the problem. The problem is we need to get back to honest money. Yeah. There can be no honesty in this world. There can be no true accountability in this world until we go back to gold and silver. Yeah. We're there, right? We have the gold and silver, right? We know this, and the people know this. I truly believe that it's dormant inside, and one of these days it's going to click, and then game's over. And the game's over for the fiat currencies at that point.
Yeah, I do agree. And just to show you how inflated this asset bubble is, I have another article here, and it's quite interesting. And so it says America's most expensive home is now $155 million cheaper. And so there's a piece of real estate out in California that was originally listed in August 2017 for $350 million. And it looks like there's been no takers, so they've been slowly dropping the price of it to where now, if you're interested, Paul, and this might be, if you want to go and get this, it's only going for, I think, $195 million. And so if that's something that someone out there watching or is interested in, I can give you the number to the realtor. You can go make that purchase. You get $155 million off.
It's funny because bringing it way down, right, to like my level, right, which is just some bum on the street, right, but bringing it way down. I remember when Philadelphia started this soda tax, right? Uh-huh. So like the taxes on soda just like it was like a penny per ounce or something like that. Yeah. Additional. In addition to the bottle deposit fees and all that, and the regular sales tax. So this was a soda tax added on to the regular sales tax. And People were showing receipts at the time where the price of the soda, right, was $5. And then by the time you got done paying with your deposit for the glass bottles or whatever, and the tax, and then the added on soda tax, the tax in and of itself cost more than the soda, right? So the soda was $5, and by the time you paid for it, it was over 10. Right. So, with that $155 million house or whatever it is, what are the taxes going to be on it? $300 million? You know what I mean? And that's what happens, right? I don't ever see my taxes going down. I only see them going up. Right. I mean, sure, we talk about this tax cut one way or another. Right. Stick it to our children. Yeah. But in general, taxes are only going one way, which is up. So these super expensive houses, and we know that the math says housing prices have to come down because theoretically interest rates are going up. That means you can afford less house, which means the price of the house comes down or you can't get in. Obviously, someone that has $150 million isn't worried about what the interest rate is because they're paying in cash, right? Yeah. But in general, this is playing out exactly how we're playing out. And just like with currencies, right, starting with the peripheries like Argentina and Zimbabwe, the housing market's starting at the periphery, but this time it's at the very top and it's working its way down. Yeah. Thoughts on that, Mike?
Yeah, I agree 100%. And so when it comes to taxation, which ultimately is another way of saying theft, it will only go up because it's interesting how everything is starting to come to the light as far as the whole concept of taxation and how everything happened at the same time. We got the Federal Reserve, then we got income tax. And so I still follow a variety of people out there that talks about the whole idea of how to get out of it, whatever. I'm not one of those people to go down that route because the fight is not worth it. I'd rather just do what I have to do, but take the little bit of disposable income crumbs I have and put it into something that will appreciate over time. And I believe all the taxation that's been taken from me and everybody else throughout the years can easily be made up as time goes along by just letting monetary policy take its course. I mean, we all know that it's going to fail. And if you are a holder of something tangible and real in reference to metals and as well as other alternative commodities and whatnot and things that are scarce out there, you're going to do fine, even though you can be taxed to the wazoo. In the end, the Federal Reserve note, I saw someone mention here the distinction between the dollar and Federal Reserve note. The Federal Reserve note will be held accountable for all of its misdeeds throughout the last 100 years. So that's my personal opinion.
Yeah, but, those are all good points. And piggybacking off of that, Silver Bullion TV put up a comment there saying, real estate's not liquid. That's right. It takes time to settle a real estate transaction. Yeah. And then going back to the, real estate's not going to get you through that checkpoint. Yeah. Right. Gold and silver is what's going to get you through that checkpoint. So, there's a lot of problems why gold and silver are the place to be as opposed to real estate, right. Especially with the taxes increasing. Right now, obviously, I'm not saying don't pay your taxes. Right. That's not what I'm saying. But I am saying, what should we do as humans for something that is immoral, unethical, and corrupt, right, and evil to its core, right? So that's my thoughts there. Yeah. One more real quick topic I wanted to hit on, Mike, was inflation, and I just wanted to throw that out. Yeah, go ahead. I don't even know how many minutes we've gone today, but
we got 40 minutes. We got time, so go ahead and give us some.
My family took a trip to Cedar Point, which is an amusement park this weekend, and this is a day trip, right? This is the closest amusement park to us, and it's a day trip. Mm-hmm. And, it's just got like roller coasters and all these fun rides. But here's my point about that, right? The cost of this trip, right? One day on Saturday, we left at 8 a.m. and we got back at like midnight, give or take a few minutes to either side. $1,050, and that's just what I remember, right? Because I was like writing it down afterwards. Yeah. $1,050. Mike, there is inflation all around us. That is more than double. Yeah. And we just went there last fall, right? They have like this Halloween thing where they have like this spooky theme going on, and they got like haunted houses and all that stuff during the fall. Yeah. We literally paid double this time. Why do we pay double? And this isn't even calculate, and this is how warped inflation is and how the Fed is when it comes to inflation, right? Because they do these things with the fast pass, right? It used to be like you just punch this kiosk and give you a ticket and tell you when to come back to ride the ride without waiting in line. Mm-hmm. Well, now they got smart and they charge for it, right? So now, if you want to have a good time at the park, you have to get these fast passes, right? It's like the difference between dial-up internet and Google Fiber, right?
Yeah.
It's like the difference between a dumb phone and a smartphone.
Yeah.
So it's really not an option. If you want to have a good time in the amusement park, you have to buy these upgrades, right? Because if not, you'll be at the park for 12 hours. You'll spend 11 hours sitting in line, right?
Yeah.
And that's no fun, really. I mean, sure, it's fun for the 1 minute you're on the ride, but for the other 11 hours in the park, it's not very fun.
Yeah.
So you have to buy these. So these tickets now, you buy the ticket, you buy the upgrade, and it's $210 a ticket. Right. And me, I can't even ride the rides. Physically, I can't even ride the rides. So, it sucks for me. I don't buy the fast pass, but I still have to pay the admission of the 55.
Yeah.
But here's my point with that, right? And how warped inflation can get. How do you measure that, right? Because these like, this is a good that didn't exist, right? So they used to have they used to not have the fast pass.
Yeah.
Then they added the fast pass. Now they have like different levels. So like there's like a mid-tier fast pass where you get, where you still have to wait in line to some of the rides. Then there's like the one that we got, which like lets you fast track all the rides. Mm-hmm. But how do you measure that, right? Because it wasn't a product that existed just a few years ago. Yeah. So, it's a brand new price and it's a brand new product. On top of that, but here's how warped and twisted it gets, right? When the Fed measures inflation, because the Fed's going to talk about inflation on Friday when personal consumption expenditures, PCE, comes out this Friday, right? And what the Fed likes to do is do what they call hedonic adjustments, right? And these adjustments are for improvements in quality. So if you would ask Jerome Powell why half dollar paid $210 a ticket this summer, when last fall he paid $55 a ticket, right? Mm-hmm. He would say, well, you get to ride more rides in less amount of time, so it's really like you only paid $35. You actually paid less this year than last year, right? So that's how sick and warped and twisted this stuff is with inflation. If you want to go to an amusement park this summer, it's going to cost your family $1,000, and I'm talking about a day trip, no hotel. So that was just a little rant there. I mean, because, it irks me so bad that even in the alternative media, people say there's no inflation. And I'm just thinking, how are people so blind to the fact that there's no inflation? There's inflation all around us. And it's beyond just simple inflation, right? Yeah. Paying twice as much over just 6 months ago, that's not just a little bit of inflation. It's starting to go parabolic. Yeah. So that's my little rant, my tirade that I wanted to throw out there, Mike.
No, that's real talk. And so I'm assuming everyone who's watching has probably an area in their life where it's something whether it's something like an actual item or event or someplace they like to go, that they can probably also testify that over the last 6 months or less, the price has gone up and it's noticeable. And so that's a direct example of the subject matter itself. So, but man, see, the point is I'm not a ride person, but my family is. So, yeah, we're not fast tracking it though. So,
I've been, and that's the thing, right? It's like, I know these things, right? Because I've been to amusement parks all of my life, right? As a kid, as a student, as a single guy, as a married fella, as a family guy, right? And I've been to them all over the country, right? I'm talking California, Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, New York, Ohio, so Texas, right? So, it's not like, I've only gone to an amusement park a couple times in my life, right? It's something that my family does regularly because we enjoy. Yeah. And sure, I mean, the stuff that you actually spend money on, that stuff is going up in price big time.
Yeah, I agree. All right, everybody, it's been great hanging out this afternoon. For those that are still watching, we appreciate you sticking around and watching and enjoying in the chat or whatnot. And as always, those that have enjoyed the back and forth, don't be afraid to donate a thumbs up right beneath this video here. More importantly, you can visit silverdoctors.com, the blog itself, for more news throughout the day or whatnot. And any last thoughts, Paul, you want to leave us with before we sign off officially for this week's live stream?
One of the things that Harvey left me with yesterday is, he's not thinking that there's much more downside in gold and silver, but that there is the potential for pressure to be added on this week for options expiration. That said, a lot of people were looking for the metals to pull back hard here. I think that they could actually have more room to run to the upside. So that's to be seen. I'm not looking for it so much this week because also when PCE comes out, I really do think that these numbers are simply made up and massaged to whatever narrative they want to make. So when the inflation numbers come out on Friday, I think they're going to fall under expectations because that's going to give the Fed the additional ammunition that they need, right, to start with these rate cuts next month. So that's what I'm looking for, and I think that so it's possible that the next run could start this week, but I think that we still have more follow through to go. And and especially with the fact that the interest is only now just starting to come back this week, I still think we have a lot more to run. Even though technically speaking on the chart, especially with gold, you could make the case that it's overbought. But then again, right, markets, that's what they do. They throw people off. Yeah. Those are my closing thoughts. Your closing thoughts there, Mike?
Well, we know what's happening. We know we're running the debt-based monetary system has ran its course, and they're starting now to be confronted with the fraudulent nature of the entities themselves. So basically, I don't expect or have any high hopes on any type of policy saving or preserving my financial future. So I personally am one of the mindset that, getting your weight up personally is the best way to hedge against and bet against the monetary toolkit that's against you. So it's you versus the monetary toolkit in a sense. So I'm assuming if you're watching this, then you know some things that you should be doing, and definitely take advantage of the opportunity to get heavy in a world that's about to be flooded with digits and paper more so than it already is. So that's my last thought there. It's been great hanging out with you guys this afternoon. Don't forget to leave a thumbs up. Share this video if you like. More importantly, stay tuned for more interviews as well as live streams coming. So enjoy the rest of your day. Peace.